One crime, 1,000 questions. Welcome to True Crime Briefing, where the truth is never buried for long.
It's past 3 a.m. in downtown Orlando. The bars are closing. The music stopped. A breeze picks up as streetlights flicker. A young woman, alone, walks through a near-empty parking lot. Her heels tap against the pavement. She's texting someone. Maybe a friend. Maybe home. She doesn't see him. Not yet. He's watching from the shadows, silent, calculating, waiting for just the right moment. She reaches her car. She unlocks the door. And then, he moves. What follows next is a nightmare. One that will haunt a city, tear apart a family, and send a man to death row. But justice wouldn't come quickly. It would take decades. Courtroom battles, mental evaluations, legal delays. And now, finally, a signed death warrant. But there's something about this case that still unsettles everyone who knows it. Because this wasn't random, it wasn't sudden, and it wasn't the first time. This is the story of a predator, a broken system, and a young life stolen too soon. This is the Thomas Gudinas case. Born in 1974 in Massachusetts, Thomas Lee Gudinas entered a world already stacked against him. From early childhood, his life was shaped by abuse and instability. His father was volatile, prone to violent outbursts, beatings that left welts, burn marks on the skin, and emotional wounds far deeper than any visible scar. His mother, emotionally broken and unable to protect him, watched helplessly as Thomas suffered day after day. The home was not a place of safety. It was a prison of fear and silence. By age 5, Gudinas was already in the system. From then on, he became a ward of the state, shuttled through an endless cycle of institutions, over 100, according to official records. Foster homes, psychiatric centers, juvenile detention facilities, each one treating the symptoms, but never the cause. Each move left another fracture in his psyche. He was branded incorrigible, unmanageable. Teachers and staff labeled him as a problem child, someone to be controlled, not understood. But beneath that surface was a boy carrying layers of trauma, unseen, untreated, and rapidly festering. Despite the chaos, he managed to earn a GED. There were moments, brief, flickering moments, when he showed intelligence, even empathy. But those moments never lasted. He was aging out of the system with no tools, no counseling, no future. In 1994, he drifted south to Florida, ending up in Orlando. There, he lived with a few acquaintances, roommates more than friends. He rarely spoke. He wandered the streets for hours, often barefoot, murmuring fragments of thought that made little sense. The neighbors called him odd, strung out, broken. He relied heavily on drugs and alcohol, his only escape from the chaos in his mind. And slowly, something inside him darkened. The line between reality and delusion began to blur. He wasn't just unraveling, he was becoming dangerous. That spring, he followed his roommates out to Barbarella's nightclub, one of Orlando's downtown hotspots. Inside, witnesses later recalled his strange behavior. He didn't dance, he didn't drink much, he just stood there, watching. At some point around 1 a.m., he slipped away into the night. Outside, the parking lot had grown quiet. The music had stopped, and a predator was waiting. He tried once, lunging at a woman walking to her car, but she fought back and managed to flee. Then, he saw Michelle McGrath, and this time, he didn't let her go. It was May 17th, 1994. Michelle McGrath was just 22 years old, a journalism student at the University of Central Florida. Bright, articulate, fiercely independent. She'd gone out with friends for the evening, a break from finals and writing assignments. As the night ended, she walked alone toward her car. She wasn't far from the club, maybe 100 yards. She likely thought nothing of it. Orlando was her city, familiar, friendly, safe. But Thomas Gudinas had been watching, waiting for someone just like her, someone alone. Without warning, he rushed her, forced her into her own car. She screamed, kicked, tried to break free. No one came. He drove her from the parking lot down darkened streets toward an isolated alley. There, hidden from sight, he raped her. Michelle pleaded for her life. She told him she wouldn't tell anyone. She begged. But he wasn't listening. He dragged her into a concrete stairwell beside a vacant building, a spot so remote even police patrols missed it. There, Gudinas beat her with his fists. He wrapped his hands around her throat and strangled the life out of her. When she stopped breathing, he left her body where it fell, half naked, twisted in pain, alone in the darkness. It was nearly dawn. He returned home. He washed up, said nothing. He slept while the city woke to a nightmare. A few hours later, a maintenance worker stumbled upon Michelle's body. The scene was horrifying. Nearby, her car was found, the seat shoved back, her purse emptied, her shoes missing. News spread quickly. A young woman brutally murdered, just yards from a popular club. The city was in shock. Friends described Michelle as brilliant, kind, and fiercely determined. Her professors called her a future Pulitzer winner. Now, she would never write another word. The Orlando Police Department launched an immediate investigation. Detectives flooded the area with questions, tracing Michelle's last known steps. Clubgoers remembered a man, a thin, pale figure standing near the back door, watching people leave. One described him as twitchy. Another said he kept his head down, eyes darting. Suspicious, but not enough to raise alarms. A composite sketch was made. It didn't take long to get a name. Thomas Gudinas. Within days, DNA testing from the crime scene confirmed it. Gudinas' semen matched the evidence recovered from Michelle's body. His fingerprints were also found inside her car. When police came to arrest him, he didn't run. He didn't resist. He barely spoke. The trial began in 1995. The courtroom was packed. Prosecutors presented a chilling narrative, detailing every moment of Michelle's abduction and murder. The jury heard about the rape, the beating, the calculated attempts to hide her body. They showed photos, played taped interviews. The horror was overwhelming. Michelle's parents sat silently, shoulders tense, eyes fixed ahead. Every word was another dagger. The defense, meanwhile, painted a different picture. They spoke of Gudinas' childhood, how he was abused, abandoned, discarded by every system that should have helped him. They brought in psychiatrists who said he suffered from schizophrenia, that he hallucinated voices, and believed Michelle was a threat. But the jury wasn't swayed. After just a few hours of deliberation, they returned with a unanimous verdict. Guilty. And the judge, after considering the brutality of the crime, sentenced Thomas Gudinas to death. But this was only the beginning of a long, tangled journey through the justice system. What followed the verdict was a legal saga that would stretch across decades. Gudinas' defense team filed appeal after appeal. They argued that the trial had failed to properly consider his mental state. Psychological experts were called in again. They described Gudinas as a deeply disturbed man, suffering from severe delusions, unable to fully grasp the consequences of his actions. They pointed to his upbringing, the relentless abuse, the institutional neglect, the failure of every authority that ever touched his life. Some argued he wasn't legally sane, that he never should have been tried for first-degree murder without a full mental competency hearing. Others said the opposite. Mental illness didn't erase guilt. It didn't bring Michel back, and it didn't change what he did. Over the years, courts reviewed the evidence, but each time they upheld the conviction. In 2005, 2011, 2016, motions were filed, all denied. By 2020, Gudinas had spent more time on death row than Michel had ever spent alive. He was now middle-aged, quiet, withdrawn, forgotten by many. But Michel's family never forgot, and neither did the state. On April 10th, 2025, after more than 3 decades of delays and appeals, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the death warrant for Thomas Lee Gudinas. After 31 years behind bars, the date was set, June 24th, 2025. For Michel McGrath's family, the news was both a relief and a reopening of old wounds. The man who had taken their daughter's life would finally face the sentence handed down so many years ago. But it also meant revisiting the pain, publicly again. Gudinas himself has remained silent in the face of the approaching execution. His legal team filed a final round of motions, challenging the use of lethal injection and citing long-standing mental health issues. They raised concerns about whether the state could carry out the execution humanely, particularly given Florida's troubled history with lethal injections. But those motions have been denied. As June 24th draws near, preparations are underway. Gudinas will be transferred to Florida State Prison's Death Watch Wing, just steps from the execution chamber. There, he'll be given the opportunity for a final meal, a spiritual advisor, one last visit with his legal team or any approved visitors. He may choose to speak, or he may leave this world in silence. Michel McGrath never got to finish college. She never got to start her career. She never got to live out the life she dreamed of. And on June 24th, 2025, the man responsible for taking all of that away may face the final consequence. Thomas Gudinas' case is one of brutality and legal complexity. It asks, can we execute the mentally ill? Can execution serve justice? Or is it punishment without purpose? June 24th will answer one question about Gudinas' fate. But the moral reckoning is just beginning. It was just before 6 p.m. on June 24th, 2025. After 31 years on death row, Thomas Lee Gudinas was led into the execution chamber at Florida State Prison. His arms were strapped to the gurney. Witnesses took their seats behind the glass. The curtain opened. He didn't speak loudly, but he said something. Officials noted he mumbled about repentance and mentioned Jesus. His exact words couldn't be made out. But there was no anger, no denial, just a quiet end. At 6 p.m. sharp, the injection began. Within moments, his chest rose, then convulsed, then went still. At 6:13 p.m., he was pronounced dead. He had no clergy present. His only visitor was his mother. There's no record of a final meal, no requests, no special dishes, just silence. A case that began in the shadows of a nightclub, ended beneath the sterile lights of a prison chamber. And for Michel McGrath's family, who had waited 3 decades, justice at last was done. Thank you for watching True Crime Briefing. If you're drawn to real-life mysteries, subscribe and hit the bell for weekly stories that expose the darkest corners of human behavior.